Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. I am so excited to have from Hong Kong, Letao Wang, author of two Oracle decks. One in particular just came out from Beyond Words Publishing, so we are hot on that trail. We're going to want to hear about it. We're going to want to see some of the artwork as well. But before we do any formal intros, I have to mention this because I'm so excited to do it. He's been helping folks since 2015, and he's got a counseling background, whether we're talking astrology, numerology, and some other areas as well. But he's part of the Australian Counseling Association in addition to the Hong Kong Society of Counseling and Psychology. I thought that was super cool. He pays attention. Letao Wang, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael.
It's a pleasure. Okay, I wanted to start before we get further into your background. You've got a bunch of different areas to cover. When, how, where did your origin story begin when it came to all this? When did you get that passion? When were you fired up to help others? Was it 2014? Was it much earlier as a child? Can you share with us a moment that was beyond ordinary that helped set you on this unique path today?
Right. Well, I think my path really started late compared to a lot of other, spiritual let's say professionals, right, in our community. I never was really in the right environment to develop my either spirituality or understanding about the mystical side of the world when I was a child. And I think the first significant encountering that I had was back in probably when I was 25 or 26, yeah. And I was living in Australia, in Sydney at that time, doing my master program in translation. And just one day, I was with a friend, out on the street, just, having coffee and having a chat. And we saw this very interesting fortune teller's shop in an area in Sydney called Erskine. And so we walked inside, and there I met the owner of the shop, right? And later he became my first mythology and also astrology teacher. And I remembered when he was using, his own designed cards, right? Related to astrology and mythology. I had this very weird, it's almost like a feeling that is very, very difficult to describe. I almost felt like I met my soulmate at that time. Yeah. And I had never felt attracted to anything like that. So while he was doing the cards in front of me and talking about those stories, I was just mesmerized. But of course, at that time, my dream was to become a SI interpreter, simultaneous interpreter, and I wanted to work for the United Nations and all that, right? I had those big dreams out there. And so even though I was very attracted to the art, right, of astrology, I never really I was not able to see that in a professional way, because all I thought was, my path was to become an interpreter. And so that was the first encounter, and that kind of planted a seed in my mind when I realized that there's something beyond what I know that is so beautiful and fascinating. And when I was about 28 years old, I think that was around 2000, let me think, 2000, maybe 14, 2013-ish. And that idea came back to me because I was already working, in finance and all that, living in a very ordinary life, right? Which was planned by the society, planned by my parents. And that touching moment, right? That feeling that I had when I was in Sydney suddenly came back to me. And that's when I realized that I'm not born to make richer people rich. Rich people richer, sorry, yeah. And I was not really getting the fulfillment in my finance job and especially, I think at that time I had a conversation with a client, and he made millions of dollars, through our institution. But there was one time he was talking to me, he said he had always had this insecurity about money. He owns several beautiful apartments in Hong Kong, and he's a single guy, right? No financial burden to pay for the children, to raise a family. He has no burdens at all. He's just one guy, He owns 3 apartments in Hong Kong and I think 2 cars, beautiful cars in Hong Kong. He has a lot of money, but every time we talk about money, and he would say he's always worried about not having enough in the future. And but what about, now he can earn money? What about in the future? What if he retires, right? And things like that. And that's when I suddenly realized that this what we actually have does not really resolve our problems. You can help someone to make them rich, really, really wealthy. But if they have a mentality that is not wealthy, then they are suffering from poverty, let's say, mentally speaking. And so a lot of things like that happened at that time. And that's when I realized that I need to do something different. And I want to help people to, let's say, with their mental health, with their spiritual health. And that's also when I decided to pursue my second master degree in counseling psychology, because I felt that probably would be able to help people way more than me sitting in front of a desk and trying to, help them make money from their stocks.
And where was that second degree from? Which institution, university?
Oh, so that was Monash University, also from Australia. Yeah.
Awesome. That
Yeah.
must, and did you enjoy that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't, to be honest, when I, was looking for the right degree to do, right, for psychology, I wanted to actually do it in a different country because my first degree was already from Australia. I wanted to try a different culture. But at the end of the day, everything just clicked.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Monash is a big deal. So bravo. Okay. Do you mind taking us back to the shop and
right.
your mentor and more? Can you describe a technique of his or just the way he approached sitting down
Mm,
at the table, setting the table in a way, but more emotionally, spiritually, energetically? Can you compliment him a little bit on his technique, his allowing?
right. Mm.
How do you describe this? Because we've seen it in different movies over time culturally, and we only get a glimpse. You've been there. What would you want to share about that with the audience?
What I really loved about my first astrology teacher, especially at the very beginning stage, yeah, when he first when I first either learned from him or let's just say the first day that I met him, I loved his storytelling because he's a very different type of astrologer. Generally speaking, when you study astrology, when you go to astrologer, they go straight into you've got your sun, for example, square Jupiter, you have your moon, trine Neptune, and this is, blah, 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 right? But my first astrology teacher started talking about the myth. He was sharing the stories behind, the name of the planets. And that actually makes sense to you. Why this planet, or the card shows up in this way, and that means this. So it's almost like he was using the mythological archetypes to give me a very a good foundation to understand what he was saying, and so that I would be able to also make the connection between my actual experience with the ancient heroes and heroines and the deities, right? And so that's what I find very special about him, because I've never met anyone who would start their astrology analysis or teaching by telling a mythological story. And that's what I loved. Yeah, because I think we can always relate ourselves to someone else's stories. And that's really helpful. Yeah.
Okay, this is a little private. Don't answer if you don't want to. But back during that time with the shop and when you started to learn, did you
Mm.
have a particular card, a particular figure, a particular mythic figure that was kind of your champion for a little while? There are stages, so you probably have had 8 since then or more. But who was your favorite back then that it just kept
Mm.
popping up, or
Yeah.
you couldn't get away from it and you were like, okay, you're my champion? Who was your
Yeah.
favorite?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that was my champion actually, but the mythological figure that I only in hindsight, yeah, I was really able to connect with. And thinking about, okay, that makes so much sense why I kept seeing her on the card was Medusa, actually. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a little bit about why. Because at that time, I was going through a lot of difficulties. I was already towards the end of my master program, but I started to grow doubtful about my path. I knew that now to change my path probably was too late because I'm already like 3 months away from my graduation and I need to start working as an interpreter, but I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I was very stuck at that time because I didn't know I had other choices. But only to, pursue this path that I kind of like already lost interest in. And also at the same time, I was going through a little bit difficulties with my personal relationships. So I had a lot of negative mindset in me, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, in relationships, I felt, well, I was unloved anyway. So what's the point? And in, let's say, in career, I felt, well, I don't have a choice. Somehow, why did I even choose this? How come I didn't think this through? All this kind of negative thinking. Yeah, it was very, very, let's say, mentally challenging time for me. And when I went to my first astrology teacher, yeah, and the first card he showed me was Medusa, and that's when I pulled right from the deck. And I really felt that that was the time when I was kind of like petrified, just like, when you stare Medusa in her eyes, she will turn things into stone. And I was literally petrified by life and by everything. And I felt stuck. I felt I was not able to change and move forward, right? And all that. And at that time, he said something very wise to me. He said, you need to look into the mirror because that's how Medusa was conquered. She saw her own reflection. She will turn herself into stone. So you have to really look into the mirror and know where in you that is stuck and reflect on that. And of course, at that time, I was like 25, right? And I was having overwhelmed by all these kind of things in life. I was not able to reflect, to be honest. That was just a very superficial thing that I heard. Okay, so I may do some negative thinking. Yeah, okay, fine, I'm negative, whatever that was. But only in hindsight, after 6 months or probably a year, when I looked back, and that suddenly made sense to me. And that's how I felt how powerful this was. So I wouldn't say Medusa was my hero, but that was the first mythological figure that I actually felt connected to, either in a good way or a bad way, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, Letao, that's beautiful.
Mm.
Okay, because that was so beautiful, is there one more card figure that, obviously Medusa was more propelling you to action or introspection or, the mirror. What
Yeah.
what would be one more that later you're like, oh yeah, that also made sense in the same way, but in a
Mm.
different way.
Yeah.
Who else?
Well, definitely Hercules,
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
But
But
why? Why?
yeah, a lot of people see Hercules just as pure strength, right? Because he was the demigod, god of strength, and he represents that, the physical power and all that. For me, strength is a little bit like, let's look at his stories again. Yeah, see, Hercules was born between a mortal mother and Zeus, so he was half divine. But Zeus already has a wife, and the wife's name is Hera. And Hera was very furious about this affair and the child, right? So her whole life, she was trying to persecute Hercules. She was trying to kill him. Even when he was a baby, she sent two snakes into his chamber and hoping that the snake will just devour this baby, right? And everything will just be fine. But if we look at this from Hercules' perspective, he was innocent. It was not his fault that his father had an affair with his mother. He was just a baby born into this world and he didn't do anything wrong. And so sometimes I feel like when I'm seeing clients, right, some of them would pull Hercules card out. And one of the very dangerous psychology they will have is they feel that they are a victim in life and they feel that life is difficult, is challenging, but they will say, but I didn't do anything wrong. What did I do to deserve this? I've always been a good person. I've always been doing my best. Why does this happen to me, if you know what I mean? Yeah. And this is what I understand Hercules at a deeper level. I think when we look at human suffering, it's not about, we can't use our own sense of justice to look at that. It's not about, I did something wrong, that's why I'm being punished now. Okay, that makes sense. Fine, I'll deal with that. Sometimes we didn't do anything wrong, just like Hercules. He was born as an innocent baby, but he had to go through the trials and tribulations imposed onto him by Hera.
Mm.
And he could also complain that it's not my fault. My mother had an affair with your husband. What did I do wrong, right? But this is something I really admire him because he took those challenges. And he knew that sometimes suffering is not the result of our own sense of justice, but it's just a type of human experience. Just like happiness does not have to be about I did something good in the past and now I'm being rewarded. So that's why I'm happy, right? And so that's what I really love Hercules as a character in Greek mythology, and I've seen that a lot in my readings, both with my clients and sometimes also for myself.
This is poetry. Thank you, Letao. It's beautiful hearing you talk about this. Okay, I am going to do a little bit more of a formal intro. So right now, and while I'm about to do this, please subscribe, like, comment on what you're enjoying here during the show, and share this. This is how we grow the channel. This is how Letao gets some Oracle decks sold via Amazon and elsewhere. Beyond Words Publishing was kind enough to bring Letao to my attention, and I'm so excited to have him here. Letao Wang, acclaimed author of Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, is a professional astrologist, tarot specialist, and the founder and spiritual counselor of the Healing Kingdom. That's his organization. He has been offering astrology, tarot, and numerology readings to clients in Hong Kong and abroad since 2015. In addition to his services, where he shares insights through, in addition to those services, he shares insights through bustle.com, and it's an astrology column he regularly does. He's an excellent, obviously, marketer and sensitive, intuitive, which I think we're also figuring out by now as well. Wang's been named the best astrologer and tarot specialist in 2021 by Hong Kong. It's the most outstanding business award and spiritual guide of the year in 2020 by Hong Kong's Live magazine. I hope I'm pronouncing everything correctly, but I think I am. And was given the Hong Kong Influencers Award in both 2019 and 2020 by Hong Kong Living magazine. Again, I want to repeat it because this is, I think, pretty cool. He's a member of the Hong Kong Society of Counseling and Psychology, as well as a member of the Australian Counseling Association. I'll leave it at that. His website, his details will be in the fine print below the video, thehealingkingdom.com. I did want to show some of the artwork for his decks, and then we're going to get talking again. This is the latest that's come out, thanks to Beyond Words Publishing. And you can, again, find this on Amazon. I do want to do a shout out to his two illustrators. They did a great job. Rosang Zwali, if I pronounced it correctly, forgive me, and Anjun Guo. Did I do okay?
Perfect.
Good. And then one more close-up, just so you can see some of the designs. And then he's got a previous deck. And this is Oracle of the Celestial Deities. And again, this one's illustrated, and it's a little tough. So would you pronounce that person's name for me, the illustrator?
I actually don't even know how to pronounce it.
It's
Yeah,
Nithraj.
yeah. So yeah, so usually I call him Zad, actually. It's a different
Perfect.
name. Yeah. So he's Thai, yeah. And he's a very such an amazing artist from Thailand. But you know, Thai people usually they have their own nickname. You know, Thai people will never call each other their real name on their ID card, right? So I call him Zad. That's his nickname. Yeah. So I don't know how to pronounce his real name, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah,
you've
he's
found
amazing.
some great illustrators. Okay, why don't you take us somewhere else along the timeline here? Was there a moment where you're like, this is incredible. The synchronicity, the serendipity, I am on the right path. You know, I just had this happen, but the way the reading went, I'm still feeling it afterwards. And I know I just did a great job. That person is lightened up. They've let go of some of their stuff, and they're a little more fired up about their own path. Can you take us somewhere along later in your career from 2015 to now?
Right. So there has been so many clients, to be honest, that I really enjoyed working with. Some of them, of course, sometimes, you know, you do part your ways. You know, Hong Kong is a very transitional city. Yeah, it's very rare that people live here forever. You know, people live here, expats, they come here for, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they move on to the next city, right? They move to Singapore or they move to other countries around. Well, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with the people who have been so, let's say, I wouldn't say they're suspicious about doing a reading, but it was their first time and they didn't really know what to expect, especially I think when it comes to dealing with male clients. I feel, well, of course, you know, you can imagine, I think it's the same with you and with most professionals in this field. Most clients of ours are tend to be female, right? And there are usually maybe the majority of them are female and less male clients. there was, I remember there was one time a regular female client brought her husband to me. So she really want her husband to receive a reading from me. But the first time he got here, he was not keen. And you can imagine that was not the right dynamic, right? I mean, he was sitting there looking bored and thinking, well, and when I asked him, what would you like to seek through this consultation? He said, I don't know. My wife brought me here. She wanted me to do this, right? So you can tell from the beginning, it's a difficult situation to work because it's a teamwork. I always believe that counseling is a teamwork. Both people have to want to do it. But the first time I think, okay, so since this is a gift from your wife to you, I will do what I can, whether you are ready to take it or not. That's a different thing, right? But I'll do my best for you. But surprisingly, after the session, he didn't really say much, but he looked at me, he said, this is very interesting. That's his comment for me, yeah, which is fine, yeah. And he left, and he has been my client since then. You know, every, I would say 3 months to 6 months, he will come to me. And he started to open up. You know, he would talk about his work. He talk about, you know, challenges with his boss and also with his subordinates. And recently, he also started to talk about interpersonal relationships. Let's say maybe with his best friend, right? The difficulties or what he has always been hiding since he was a child. And he was not comfortable sharing with a lot of people around him because he felt that would show his vulnerability. And he was just never really comfortable doing that. And that's when I really felt, first of all, I'm so glad to see him developing himself, yeah, together with me. And I also know that I've done something right. Yeah,
Beautiful.
to help someone who had absolutely no trust in either me or in what I do at all, to becoming a regular client and see value, right, in this collaboration, in this teamwork.
Okay. Now, have you found your own skills to have grown? I mean, you would expect expansion and growth as a constant. We fight it as hard as we can by being up here thinking something. But for yourself, your personal skills as you do this, helping folks, have you learned to trust the flow, the universe, the healing, the love that's involved more and more and more? And if you don't mind me asking, can you put that into context for us? Like at the beginning, you started this way. Where are you today on this? But I mean, have you noticed a remarkable change over time?
Well, I would say there are so many different areas, right, that I have seen changes and development. And also, I think a lot of them have to deal with my education before I started my spiritual journey. Sometimes people think that, okay, when you change your career path, let's put it this way, a lot of people would have this fear of changing their career path because they feel whatever I have done and I have accumulated in my previous chapter would be wasted because I'm going to go into something completely different. And I really disagree with that because when I was, before this whole journey, I was studying interpreting. I was a translator, right? And I lived in different countries. I lived in Japan for 6 years as well. And so that had nothing to do with my spirituality, but that did build a great foundation for me to understand different culture. Especially as you can tell, I'm Chinese descent, and my parents are from China. China and Japan are not friends. You know what I mean? No, they're never friends, apart from the fact that China sent 2 pandas to Japan as gift. But that's it, And so you can imagine living in Japan and as a Chinese person, especially I was quite young. I was like 18 when I moved to Japan. You had to understand the cultural difference and also the stereotypes and whatever how the society would see you as a not just someone foreign, but someone Chinese, with all these kind of historical problems, right? There. And so only in hindsight, after I started my counseling journey, because Hong Kong, like what I said, is a very transitional city. Most of my clients are foreign expats. They are from Europe, they're from Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, India. We have a lot of Indian population here in Hong Kong. So when you talk to them, one of the first things that I would try to understand is sometimes in our culture, it's not going to be a problem at all, but for them it is. Like, for example, in a more liberal sense, we think, okay, if you don't if you don't think a marriage could work out, then you should consider a divorce, right? But for Indian people, that's not on the table. It can't happen because it's about family ties.
Mm,
It's not about who you love, but this is about arranged marriage.
mm,
I married this person because there are two families. They had a contract with each other. I can't divorce.
mm.
And so not understanding those things from a cultural perspective could be quite frustrating for the counselor, I think, because you'll be thinking, why can't you just break through that? But I think a lot of these things slowly also, when I was working, I slowly to understand more and more, and that really helps with the experience of counseling, yeah, and also the efficiency of counseling.
Mm.
Uh,
Okay, I've got another, I don't know how to put this, but I'm going to try. So there are healers out there who in the past have taken someone's hand as if they're
mm,
reading the hand, but they
mm,
already know what to say. They're getting it. They felt it. They might have felt it before the person walked into the studio, and they just want
mm,
to be gentle. They want to make sure that they let the client know that they're looking at their hand as if everything is there, and they don't want them to know that it's quicker, it's up here, it's coming from here. So
right.
they keep the focus here while they deliver the
Mm,
messages. How has that happened for you somehow? Because I'm going to caveat this, the cards must still tell a wonderful story that backs up the vibe that you're getting. But do you have clients that sometimes, you're in the shower, on the walk, doing your exercise that morning, they haven't come in or you haven't connected yet, and you just get it, but the cards will tell the parallel story and back it up.
mm.
How does it work in
Yeah.
those dynamics? Is that a real, does it happen?
Yeah, well, for me, it's because I work with the stars a lot, right?
Yes.
With
Okay.
astrology, right? So what I usually notice is at the very beginning, I notice that the clients who come to me on the same day, they tend to be kind of similar,
Mm,
even though they don't know each other, right? I mean, and then when I look at astrology, right, the the allocations of the stars, right, the moon, the stars on that day, and you will realize, oh, that's a pattern. The psychological issues and blockages they are dealing with exactly is in line with what is happening in the sky right now. And also you realize that maybe on a certain day, the chart is very clear. It's very beautiful, right? There's not much, let's say, squares or oppositions in the sky. And it's a great day. You just know that everything is aligned. And the clients who come to me on that day, they also tend to, you know, they have less severe problems, or they might come to me and say, you know what, I don't really have anything challenging at this moment, but I was recommended by a friend to you, and I just want to hear what you would say, for me to even maybe just become better, right? So I think, for some people, it's about looking at their palm or feeding their energy. For me, the first step is working with the stars, because one of the things I usually tell my clients is sometimes they ask me, "Are you a medium? Can you talk to my ancestors?"
mm,
And I said, I cannot. I said, I'm not a medium because I don't want to brand myself as I'm a master of everything. I'm
mhm.
not a medium. I'm an astrologist. So my foundation is understanding how astrology works, because the whole concept of this is as above, so below, as within, so without.
Mm.
And so when we look at this, is about, okay, let's look at the sky. This is what's happening now, and let's look at our level and what's happening in this realistic world. Either it's about me and the client, or this could be about what's happening with our president,
Mhm.
with our government. They're all the same.
Yep.
Yeah, this is how I work. Yeah.
Okay, tell us. I'm going to pivot just for a second back to the deck that just came out. I think it was January of this year, 2024. Again, Beyond Words Publishing. Thank you, Brenna, for hooking us up. But I'm going to put this back up for folks. Can you describe where would you like them to look to purchase the deck? Is it Amazon? Is it somewhere else, their local
Mm,
bookstore?
right. So I would say definitely Amazon is the most convenient way to purchase, right? You can just log on to your Amazon account and search Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. That's the easiest way. If you have, let's say, New Age shops selling Oracle decks, bookshops, yeah, things like that, you can also check them out. Or you can purchase directly from Beyond Words Publishing's website. They
Okay.
will do the shipping, yeah, to you. Yeah, they can. I think they can also do overseas shipping if you're overseas, but there's just a slight charge, yeah, for the shipping. Yeah.
Okay, and then you've got, is it like 250 pages, the instruction booklet for just, it's really helping you read the cards, the combinations, right? That's why it's so big.
Well, so the book is constructed in this way, yeah. In each chapter, we have the first part is called the myth, and this is my own rendition of Greek mythology. For example, the first chapter is for Theseus, who rules the first decan of Aries. And when we open that chapter, the first part is the mythological story about Theseus and why he represents the keyword leadership. And then the second part of the chapter is the teaching. So if you pull this card out, what is the meaning behind it and what's the spiritual teaching there? Now, if you are someone who is really interested in Greek mythology and you want to understand the card at a much deeper level, I highly recommend that you read both. So you will go from the beginning from the myth to the teaching to the end. Yeah. And it will really help you deepen your understanding. But let's say if you're in a rush, you don't have the time to read the story, you can just go straight into the teaching. That would also that would be good enough for you to understand what this card means to you. Yeah.
Okay, and are there two different, is there a short version of a quick reading versus a longer reading when you do the deck?
Well, the so-called quick reading, that would be just a one card pull. I think it depends
Okay.
on what kind of spread that you do, right? The quick way is every day you can do a daily card pull in the morning, right? That could be a great guidance for us. Sometimes you don't even need to have a specific question. You can just say, I just want to know what I need to know for today so that I can be more productive and happier. Yeah, things like that. But you can also use this card to do a very complex spread, even combine that with tarot, which I do all the time.
Hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
talk to us about synchronicity, serendipity. What are you still shaking your head about all these years later? Something that happened beyond the shop and your mentor and how cool that was. Is there something else that still you say, wow, that was no accident, and I'm so thankful it happened?
Well, I would say then that was okay. So when I first started, right, and when I first made that decision, I'm gonna pursue this path. I had no idea to really make myself known, because generally speaking, when you think of someone going to a reader, the image of the reader you would imagine is let's say maybe a 40 50 years old lady wearing a floral dress, and she's like a mother figure, she's reading your cards. I was 25 26, and I was a 25-year-old guy. I mean, who would want to come to me for a reading, right? And so I had no idea how to promote myself, even though I knew I could do this. And it was, to be honest, I went through a lot of difficulty, and I was also, lied to by someone who said who would help me, but all they did was asking me to do free readings, and then they disappeared.
Yeah.
Right? They said, okay, you do free readings for me and this friend, right, and we'll help you promote you, because she was an owner of a shop selling candles in Hong Kong, and I thought it would be a great way to collaborate with her. But then she just disappeared. Yeah, of course, that's fine. And I was devastated at that time, thinking, what do I do about this? And I was just having lunch with a really good friend. She had nothing to, she didn't work in this industry. She worked in fashion, actually. And she said, oh, she said, you know what? I actually, we're buying advertisement from a Hong Kong media. And I know one of the girls there. Yeah. If you are interested, I can just, connect you to. And I was actually very suspicious because I was lied to once, right? And I was thinking, yeah, okay, why? Maybe they would just ask me to do free readings for them, and then they will not contact me again. But so I met this girl, and she was very nice. And we met in a cafe, right? And so she did say, can you do a reading, right? Quick readings, because we need to see what you do. So I did one for her. Again, I did my best for her. But after that, I didn't expect anything at all. I was thinking, okay, bye. Okay, you gave me a name card. Probably you'll never contact me again. And 2 months later, she wrote this beautiful article about me and published it on the media. Front page, you know what I mean? And and from that day, clients started to, because that media is so powerful in Hong Kong, everyone, subscribes to their newsletter. Everyone, reads their email, right? And from that day, I started to have clients. And until today, I have to tell you, this happened 10 years ago. Until today, I still have clients coming to me and saying, oh, I read about you from that article.
Oh,
And so I really felt that sometimes, when we go through these kind of difficulties, right, we can be lied to. People can scam us, right? And we feel like what I said about Hercules earlier. What did I do to deserve this, right? All I wanted to do was something nice. But sometimes I think the universe is always watching. They need you to never give up. They need you to really just push through. And then when they really see that determination in you, they will give you someone right. And that person will really open that door for you. And this is something that I can never forget.
No, Lutao, that's wonderful. Okay, what's a personal practice? If it's obviously too personal, don't share it. But this is for your own maintenance, your boundaries, your so you don't give too much to others. How do you make sure you're aligned with your
Mm,
day or your setting or
right.
your energy in your space? Do you
Mm,
blow, do you do an incense cleanse? How do you
mm.
maintain your boundaries, do your thing?
Right. So I think I completely agree with you. I think boundary setting is extremely important because we are doing such sensitive work. We're talking to clients on a daily basis, and sometimes we can even be emotionally a little bit involved with their situation, even though we tell ourselves not to do that too much. But as you can tell, right, because a big part of our job is to offer empathy. And in order to do that, we have to somehow emotionally be connected with them to a certain level, right? Otherwise, we can't really bring that empathy out. But after the session, I think usually what I do is I have to give myself maybe a minute or two and just to, you can call that meditation, but just to consciously tell myself that I need to detach from this energy for my own mental health, right? Especially after a very challenging session when the client has been, let's say, has been crying, right,
Mm.
during the session. Maybe they were really out of control of their emotion. I had a client who was howling in the session. She was crying, not, just some tears dripping. She was really crying with big voice. And you can tell how frustrated they are and how sad they were. But after the session, it's about us, giving us that kind of space, right? This could be about burning sage. I definitely do that.
Mm.
I actually do the sage burning once a week, actually, for my studio. I'd open all the windows, move around, the house with the sage. If I can, every 2 days, I will burn Palo Santo.
Mhm.
Sometimes for me, one of the best way for me to feel good is to clean the studio.
Mm.
You just with alcohol wipes, right? You just especially wiping the area that clients sit. Yeah, it's not about dirty, right? Things like
Mm.
that, but it's more about clean the energy. It's about also it's about being responsible for the next client to come because you want them to come to the studio sitting there feeling that, okay, I can find comfort in this space rather than feeling there's so much negative energy in here. Who
Mm.
did you see
Mhm.
2 minutes ago, right? So I think that what I do that a lot. Yeah. And if I'm really feeling drained, if I do too much readings and I know that there's a limit there, we don't have that much to give, and I'll literally go on a trip for
Mm.
like 2 to 3 days and I'll come back again. Yeah. And yeah, so that's exactly like what you said, right? The so-called boundary setting, and also it's about our self-love as professionals.
Beautiful. Speaking of sage, I would have forgotten otherwise. I am going to light some sage. It's a staple, a regular thing we do on this show. There were 50 shows in 2023. We have 113 booked into March of 2025. But it looks like
Mm,
we're going to probably run 2 shows a week. I think June 1st to August 25th for folks as kind of a trial run. I'm going to blow some sage, but I'm going to give the question to Letao that's coming up next so he can, in the back of his mind, not to double task because you're supposed to be present in the heart, especially during an interview. But the question we're going to ask is dream time. What dreams have you had that have been impactful that you remember? I don't remember a lot of my dreams, but I know I've been having them. And then also dream interpretation. We'll get to that in a moment. Find out what you do if you do that as well. I'm going to light some sage wherever you are in the world. You can catch this. I've done it as a guest, I think, on 46 shows in the last 2 years. Australia, Germany, New Zealand, and so on. You just have to leave your eyes on the smoke. If you want to go crazy, because, why do linear when you can have more fun? Smell the sage and smell flowers. If you want to go really wild because you're already an intuitive like Letao, catch the beach on top of that. If you want to go crazy, crazy, close your eyes and hear the beach as well. Okay, Letao, we did this before the show, so we know it works, and not to put any pressure on anybody, but people can put their hand out and feel the vibration of the sage. And in Hong Kong, Letao, what are you getting right now across the globe?
I
And
can really, I can really feel the sage's energy is coming to this way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
beautiful. I'm going to light it up a little more and I'll do the really bad joke. Do not judge me by this one, but because there's a flower involved with it. What's the only flower found on the human face? This is bad, folks. This is bad. Tulips. And yeah, and if you're laughing, you're breathing, you're letting go, you're in your heart. Congratulations. That's all this is about is smiling more, loving more, allowing more, being in your heart more. And then when you need maintenance, you got to go see Letao.
Wow.
Good. What do you
It's
get?
just
Whatever you want to share, share.
um years ago, uh because I don't know if I've heard of this resort place in Asia, very popular. It's called Bali,
Mhm.
right? A lot of spiritual people go to Bali and things like that. And years ago, recommended by a few friends. So I went there and I met an amazing medium there. Yeah, she was an Australian lady living in Bali, and she was, offering the healing and services to the people there. And I attended one of her sessions, and that was the first time that I received a healing service and a cleansing service from a medium, and this reminded me of that
Oh,
feeling. Yeah, yeah.
oh, beautiful. And that's wonderful. Could you share if there were any other pivotal places? It could still be Bali or Australia, but different, not where Monash is, but elsewhere. What journey, what trip, what scenery moved you?
Well, if I have to pick one, that would be Delphi in Greece.
Oh, wow.
That's actually I go to Greece every year. Yeah. It's almost like my annual pilgrimage. Yeah, because I go to Greece to pray. So Delphi is very a famous place because that's where the ancient temple of Apollo was. And even these days, if you travel to Greece, it's about 2 hours drive from Athens. It's actually all the way up in the on the hill, right? You have to climb step by step to the temple. Nowadays, there's only ruins, right? So rocks, around and some pillars there. You don't really see a full temple there, but the energy is amazing.
Hmm.
And the first time I visited Delphi, which was on my birthday, because I really wanted to make it special, I felt the energy there. I felt Apollo was there. As I love mythology and I write stories about mythology. And that's for me, that trip was so sacred. It was so important. And I felt that's when I really made that effort to connect with the divine.
Hmm.
And yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I haven't read everything, but I've seen some of your books, right? About angels. And I
Mhm.
think it's a little bit like similar to that feeling. You're feeling you're connected to something so sacred in you. And so Delphi was definitely that place where I feel um the most spiritual and the most beyond what we see on a daily basis. Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you see yourself one day putting together a retreat to Greece or elsewhere? It could be Bali. I mean, that could be a lot of fun, or Australia. Where would your first choice be? Would it be Greece?
Ideally, it would be Greece. Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
actually have a friend who organizes trips in not in Greece, but in those islands, right? Greece has a lot of beautiful islands in the Mykonos and Santorini, right? She would organize those yoga trips right there.
mhm.
And I was looking at that, I was thinking, wow, definitely I should collaborate with someone to do this, right? Maybe there could be a retreat about mythology, about reading. Or I can teach mythology there, for the 7 day retreat or whatever that is. That would be my dream, actually. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more steps, then we'll let you add anything else that you'd like to add. But here is just a regular Bic lighter. I'm going to light it. People can see the white, gold, yellow. You don't know what's coming up yet. We did not do this before the show. And if you wish, I'll do it again. But anyone at home can set their intent. They can tap the deities, the divine, angels, spirit guides. What am I missing? Ancestors, but all unconditional love, nothing but positivity. So However people roll from here, make the request, set your intent, ask for, when I do the lighter again, ask for extra light on it that you know can't be from an American Bic lighter, white, yellow, gold. Ask for pink, purple. I mean, if you're really good at this, you'll get a little heart or a vortex coming off that you're like, whoa, that can't be at all, except it is. Your heart is like, I'm with this. I love it. It's light. Your brain is like, no way, Jose, it can't possibly be. But Letao, are you ready for this? I don't want to impose. So is this okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. So think of Greece, think of the retreat, think of multiple retreats, and that years later, there's people on their 7th year with you. Think of all I know is I'm getting whooshed on that. It feels good. So couples coming again and again because they had such a good time. Okay, allow for a little extra light, see what you can see. I'll lean out of the way and keep it on the screen. And at home, just allow, allow, allow. And if you need extra help, ask angels to get in, help you out of your head, into your heart. Make it nice. Amen. Rock and roll. Thank you. Om Sai Ram if you're from India. Letao, are you seeing anything extra light-wise around the flame? It's okay if
Yep,
not.
yep,
Oh, you
yep,
are
yep, yep.
taking chances here. Well, put your hand out. You won't get heat. You'll get love. And feel what you can feel. And then I'm going to shut this down in a second. And folks, you can just play this over again. If you have to go touch a tree, barefoot on the grass, go for a run, hug the dog, take a shower. Okay, I got to shut that off. Too hot. Oh, okay. Whew, hot. Letao, what would you want to remind us of? How can we keep our chin up? We're all walking a path. I don't think a lot of folks appreciate how unique their life path is, probably designed by them before they came in. And so we tend to look down at our shoe tips and do too much of this. How can we have more, hope, faith, trust, joy, chin up in life, be that inner fearless, peaceful warrior? And when I say faith, it's, religious faith, non-religious faith. To me, it's the same,
Mm,
letting go
yeah.
out of here to be here. And that's why people come to you, is to get refreshed and guided.
Mm, mm.
What's your message about their path and how to stay the course?
Well, I think for ideally, of course, yeah, as you can see from Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, I really hope that everyone can have an inner hero in them. Of course, I understand that that might not work for everyone. For some of us, this might work perfectly, right? We have someone that we really look up to, and we'll always feel that I'm living my life, I'm striving to be like that, right? I think that's a great thing to have. And for some people, maybe they say, even when I was a child, I didn't have someone that, like I wanted to be, I didn't like Superman, I didn't like, Catwoman, all this kind of stuff. And I think then when we look at the ancient mythology and heroes, right, then it's not about wanting to be with someone, but to relate to their experience, the hero's journey, their experience. Because exactly, let's put it this way, whatever that we are experiencing at this time, yeah, with our families, with our jobs, with our, especially when it comes to the suffering that we're talking about, the heroes thousands of years ago, they experienced exactly the same thing. When, let's say, when a mother, for example, in modern days is really trying to, let's say, fix the child and trying to make the child perfect, and this reminds me of the mythological story Thetis and Achilles, when she tried to dip Achilles into the river Styx to make him divine, but eventually he was not divine. He still had his Achilles heel, which is his vulnerability. And when I look at the mythological story, Echo and Narcissus, and we look at the toxic relationship when one person is unable to communicate clearly, which is Echo, because she couldn't say anything except for echoing other people's voice. And we also look at the Narcissus, whose name literally means someone who is only in love with themselves. And we see all these patterns in our daily life. And so I really feel that sometimes in order for us to understand life better, it's about understanding you are not the only one experiencing this. Our ancestors from thousands, millions of years ago probably are doing the same thing. And with this understanding, I think we'll be able to look at the situation more objectively and also feeling less lonely.
Beautiful.
Mm.
I'm going to show it one more time, just the deck, and splay it out again. But could you share one more card that is, again, back to the message of your chin up, stay the course, allow
Mm.
more, and watch the universe do its job? deities,
Mm,
mythic figures, loving figures are here to help.
right.
What's that
Mm,
card that to you is like a beacon of light? It's a great reminder. You wish it could be spot on all the time. I'm sure we'd all love to be able to pick that card, but what is that
yeah.
card we should be asking for more?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, like what you said, right? Every hero is worth the praise. But since you mentioned the word faith earlier, so let's talk about the card Penelope, because literally the keyword for Penelope is faith. And I'll just share a little bit about her background, yeah, because maybe some of our audience are not familiar with this figure. Penelope was the queen of Ithaca from Greek mythology, and her husband is more famous. Her husband's name is Odysseus, right? So the main guy from Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. And of course, Odysseus went to the Trojan War, and he was involved in the war for 10 years. And also, even after the war, it took him 8 years to journey all the way back home to Ithaca. And so during those 18 years, Penelope was alone as a wife and as the queen of Ithaca. She was alone in the palace without a husband. During that period of time, a lot of suitors, yeah, young prince from other, neighbor countries will come to her, pursue her, and say, "Your husband is dead," right? Of course, back then there was no mobile phone, there was no, email and that kind of stuff, right? When your husband is gone, you really don't know whether he's alive or not. He's just gone. And so a lot of people persuaded her to remarry because there was no guarantee that her husband would still be alive. And Penelope had a lot of faith in her husband, and she somehow her intuitive self told her that Odysseus will come back one day, and she's not going to remarry. And during that period of time, she was also not just sitting there and twisting her thumbs and thinking, "Okay, I'll just wait for him to come back," because that's sometimes what we fall into. We're being told that we need more patience, so we sit there and twisting our thumbs, thinking, "This is suffering. When do I get that?" Right? When we read the story, we realize that Penelope actually she was extremely creative. She was not sitting there doing nothing and filled with boredom, but she actually ruled the country of Ithaca and made it more and more prosperous. So she was very productive, right? And she, because somehow it's related to her faith, she wanted to make sure that when her husband comes back, he will see a prosperous country, right? A happy country in front of him. So after 18 years, Odysseus came back and they had a happy ending, right? They had a reunion and everyone was happy. And I love this story because, as you know, right, Greek mythology story usually they end up with some kind of tragic
Mm.
stuff, right? Really like, crazy and ending. But this one is beautiful. And so I think this is about faith, right? This is about, okay, we might have fear in life. We might never have a guarantee that something will happen or will not happen to us. But faith is not really the absence of that fear, but it's our ability to withstand it. And it's important for us to always bring in that sense of creativity and into our lives, so that when we are the so-called waiting for the good things to happen to us, at the same time we're also creating that good thing that we want to see.
Brilliant. Letao Wang, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity and Love. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I can feel it when you're talking. I'm assuming the audience will as well. That means put your comments down. Let's get some compliments going or what resonated most. It's a big deal. When you comment, other people will feel bold. They will be able to do the Penelope, not the fear of not writing a comment. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, and so on. Thank you so much, Letao. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. Thank you.